Mm. Hello, everyone. My name is Sunshine, and I have alcoholism. I remind myself that I have alcoholism. Sometimes I don't say I'm an alcoholic. I remind myself that I have a disease that is still quite active, and it is alcoholism. I want to start by first thanking you, Teresa, for asking me to participate in my own recovery by coming out and sharing my experience, strength, and hope tonight. And Ali, thank you both for the invitation to be here tonight. This is truly a gift. And, I've never done anything for 36 years in a row besides breathe in and out. Today is actually my sobriety date. I got sober on January the 10th, 1987. And I remember, getting into a hospital program. Thank you, beloveds. I remember going and driving my car to a hospital program, that I had been in prior because I had tried getting sober, in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, in hospital programs, trying to go to meetings. And I am definitely one of those people that needs additional support and additional help. And I remember feeling like a dog that had been hit by a car, that was having patches of hair missing. I remember feeling like I was just this lowly, good for nothing, just piece of crap. But there was something within me that wanted to live. And I knew that if I surrendered one more time, that something could possibly happen. And that is because I had been to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had seen people come from the depths of death, of jails, institutions, and from, the streets. And I had hope. I had hope that maybe if I truly surrendered, that something could happen for me. Previous to my getting sober, this time I went to meetings. I had a lot of fun. I got in the cliques. If you're not in a clique, get in a clique. I know people say, no, don't get in a clique. If you're not in a clique, get in a clique. Cliques will help you stay sober until you don't feel cliquish anymore and you can evolve and get out of it. But, I got with groups of people, small groups of people, and we would do some shenanigans, and go to Magic Mountain together, like Six Flags. And we would, come home on a Saturday after a meeting and gather around somebody's house and get out the pots and pans and start drumming and playing, trying to play music and sing. And like, those were the simpler times. But, for me, in those times, I thought that I had to sound like you. I thought that I had to say what you said and do what you did, in order to stay sober. I didn't know how to just be myself and be honest, and say I need help or I don't understand. I became an AA parrot. And, it was more about trying to people please and manipulate and use people within the rooms to try to get something. And what I found was that because I was incapable of being honest with myself and then being able to be honest with you, I found that all that I could do was pick up again. Because that dishonesty was keeping something between us. There was just something, some bumper, some object between us, and I could not be honest. And it cost me my sobriety. It cost me my time. I remember being the one that they would say, oh, okay, Sunshine, will you come up and read chapter 5? And they'd have the book, at chapter 5, and I go, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. And it was funny. It's funny now, but nobody said, Sunshine, will you recite chapter 5? They said, will you read chapter 5? I couldn't even follow direction. I couldn't even follow some simple direction that just said, read chapter 5. I thought that I had to perform. I thought that I had to people please. I came in just trying to be someone that I wasn't. I thought I had to impress you in order to be able to stay in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And a lot of that comes from some of the religious abuse, I will call it. I grew up Catholic, and then I grew up Jehovah's Witness for some time. And when I was about 15, 16 years old, my mom found out that I was gay, and she turned me into the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was interrogated. I was put in rooms, and you have to change and you cannot. And I'm like, this is who I am. Like, this is who I am. This is who I love. This is natural for me. And they just kind of kept beating me down and beating me down. And before I knew it, one Sunday I'm at the Kingdom Hall, and they open a letter and they read my name. And they said that because of conduct unbecoming a Christian, that I was disfellowshipped from the congregation. And what I heard were gasps and people turning around and looking at me. And they were just shocked, because I was the 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, all the way up to like age 15, who was knocking on people's door and talking to people about the Bible, and very fluent, with the Bible and helping other people. And all of a sudden, my name is being read, and they're telling me that I'm now kicked out. Wow. That experience taught me to hide. It taught me that it wasn't okay for me to be who I am, for me to experience and express the way I expressed. And so I think for a long, long time, especially once I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I saw the vastness of it, I wanted so desperately just to fit in and to be a part of, that I was willing to manipulate and not really be my true self in order to be accepted, in order to be a part of this thing. See, because I was desperate. I was desperate to not only get sober, but to have a tribe, to have a people, to have a group, to feel like I belonged, or like I was even worthy. I had no self-worth. I had no self-esteem. All I knew how to do was manipulate and cheat and try to coerce you into liking me. And so I was definitely a people pleaser in the biggest way. But the last time, on January the 9th, 1987, I had hit a bottom so bad that I was willing to go to any lengths. And I remember, going to that hospital program and asking them to let me in, and parking my car in the parking lot. I didn't care how much it would cost by the time I got out 30 days later. But, I was willing. And at this stage of the game, I was willing to go to any lengths, because I heard that in the rooms. I didn't want to feel like I felt anymore. That stray dog that I was describing to you, it was either, take me out of my misery or teach me how to live. And there was something within me that still wanted to live. And in that effort of going there and surrendering, I had a sponsor. I called her. I said, hey, I'm here at this program. And she said, good, stay there. And when you get out of there, I want you to go to a recovery home. And even then, I was willing. If she would have said, we have 2 pails of horse manure and we want you to carry them around the block 30 times, it's going to help to keep you sober, I was going to knock you down and you down and you down, Melanie, to get that horse manure so that I can stay sober, because I was willing now to go to any lengths. As a matter of fact, my sponsor asked me 2 questions. She said, are you tired? And I said, yes. And she said, are you willing to go to any lengths for your sobriety? And I said, yes. And so I embarked upon a path, and upon a course of action that have absolutely revolutionized my life, that has transformed my life. Like my cousin Teresa said in her introduction, thank you, Teresa, for that introduction. I love you so much that, you know, to see me when I was out there drinking and drugging, in my shenanigans, in my crap, doing my thing, and to see me now is totally, totally different. And I owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's why no matter what, when I am asked to speak, when I am asked to share, I make every effort to say yes and to be there and to be accountable, because Alcoholics Anonymous has saved my life. It's interesting that these steps are in an order. And I think that it's so divinely guided that, you know, in the beginning with, you know, the first few steps, it's really about admitting. And, I like the principle of honesty. That one principle of honesty is something that I'm practicing more and more today, even more. And I want to talk about that, especially as it relates to step 11. But before I get there, you know, step 11 says, you know, that we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. So before I get to step 11, it comes to reason that I must first have a conscious contact with God. That's why I am, you know, through prayer and meditation, seeking to improve that conscious contact, right? So I have to have it. And it comes it comes really in steps 2 and 3, where I recognize that, and I admit, you know what? My life is unmanageable. What has really transpired here is not only do I have this disease of the mind, body, and spirit, but I have lost my conscious contact with a higher power. And I get to admit that as well, is that I have been disconnected. And so in steps 2 and 3, it's really about, you know, coming to recognize this power, this presence, this life force, this energetic, this God consciousness, this higher power, whatever it is that we call it. It's not only about coming to recognize that there is a power greater than ourselves that exists in the world, but it is also that I can use it and that it can use me as I allow it to use me. And what happens in that, when I turn my will and my life over, really what I'm only doing and only saying is, you know what? I need guidance. And so for me, for a long, long time, just kind of like the GPS that we have on our cell phones, that has been higher power. I see higher power in that GPS. Like, here's where I want to go. Let me shut up and take directions. Let me shut up and follow the directions. It says turn left. Let me turn left. It says go for 21 miles. Let me go for 21 miles. If it says exit on exit 71, I exit on exit 71. Like, we look really stupid arguing back with the GPS after we've entered where we want to go, and we talking to the lady in the box and be like, no, I'm going to go this way. And all Spirit says is rerouting. Okay, if you're going to go that way, fine. It's going to add 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. But guess what? If that's the way you choose to go, I'm going to reroute. I'll help you still get there if you still want to get there. And for me, that is, you know, that is the higher power that I like to relate to in that way, that even though I might make some screwed up decisions, or even though I might change my mind, or even though I may want to now go in a whole different direction, Spirit, life, essence says to me, okay, sunshine, rerouting. And that it provides the directions to still get to that place that I want to go, even though I have not followed those internal, you know, directions. And for me, that's how God works for me. That's this higher power. And so my direction, which is, you know, that I'm seeking through prayer and meditation to improve this conscious contact, you know, it comes at a cost. And the cost comes, the cost of that is ego. I get to release ego, Because see, I want to take all the credit. I did this, I did that, yada, yada, yada. And what it cost me is ego, the deflation of ego. What it costs me is time. What it costs me sometimes is, a strain on relationships, but in actuality, it's not a cost at all. Because when I dedicate my time to my prayer and meditation, that's where that quote comes from on page 88. We become much more efficient. You see, when I allow myself to be guided by this indwelling power and presence, you know, on page 55 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson says, you know, the great reality, capital G, capital R, can be found within. He also says that deep down within every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, but it is covered, it's covered up. And so we don't have to go to the mountaintops. And I like that not only in our big book, but also in our 12 and 12, how this is the place where Bill Wilson kind of says, hey, guess what, y'all? I don't know everything about spirituality, about God, about prayer and meditation. So this might be a good place for you to consult with others and check out what they're doing and see how they're living and see how you can borrow or use some of the techniques and the things that they're using, just like he used the St. Francis of Assisi's prayer. You know, that where there is darkness, may I bring light. Where there is hatred, may I bring love. Like Bill Wilson borrowed a lot from Christianity. And even though Alcoholics Anonymous is not a Christian faculty or organization, he borrowed things from his experience. And so here in step 11, this is where we have this opportunity now to check out what's available to us. You know, when we get sober, sometimes many of us can get sober by only going to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's great. Some of us, like me, need outside help. So I went to a hospital program, to a recovery facility, right? That's where I go for physical sobriety. And then when we get here, you know, some of us kind of have this emotional and mental challenge. And so what we do is we go see a therapist and we go to therapy and we're seeking outside help there. Well, it's the same for our spiritual malady, the spiritual sickness that is the third part of our disease, our dis-ease, that spiritual malady. Sometimes we have to go outside of Alcoholics Anonymous to seek out those spiritual practices and tools like prayer, like meditation, like, you know, devotions and journaling and tithing and being in spiritual community. Like many of those things, you know, those are outside things, but they actually help the whole person, and it helps to address the threefold nature of my disease. So for me, you know, I started out kind of like being really scared because remember, I got kicked out of Jehovah's Witnesses for being gay. And it was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about God. God hates me. God doesn't love me. And thank goodness for a loving sponsor who said, you know, this is an opportunity for you to have a God of your own understanding, not your own misunderstanding. And however small it is, you can begin to grow it from there. And I got to tell you and share with you that my idea of a higher power has grown and shifted over and over and over and over again. Even to this day, and to this day, I went from thinking about a power greater than myself that was kind of like Santa Claus. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. You know, he's writing a list and, you know, you're going to get punished and, you know, you're not going to get any gifts. Like for me, you know, my idea of God was very much like that. And then it was almost like stalker God. Like, I know your every move. I know every hair on your head. I know what your thoughts are. I'm like, okay, God, stop stalking me. Stop stalking me. just let me be. Is there anywhere I can be, And, I say that jokingly, but it is very, very true. When we grow up with ideas about a higher power that is very, very strict, or that is made in humans' likeness, with the characteristics of jealousy and things of that nature. So it's like, wait a minute, God made us in its image. And then we've been returning the favor. We've been making God in our image, with the jealousy and you have to do this, and the controlling and all of that. As I've grown, my idea of a higher power, of life, of God has shifted and changed. And it's changed through using prayer and meditation. And, the last meditation that I really had a definite spiritual awakening was a meditation that I'll share with you. I'll just, verbally share it with you, but I'll share it with anybody who wants it. It's this idea, just like the Big Book says, that the great reality is found within, that deep down within every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And where I got totally messed up and screwed up was, I got sober. I started getting a car and started, getting apartments and started traveling and doing things. And, when we get sober, and life starts getting good, we think we did that. And this is life is the ish, and it's yeah, money, property, prestige, even though automatically, we're already told about beware of money, property, and prestige, right? And it's all about climbing the ladder and doing things and being all of this. And yeah, AA is good because look at my whatever car you drive. What happened for me was I thought that who I was my job, was my sobriety, was my house, was the car I drive, were the people that I started hanging out with. Oh, I got X amount of years. How much do you have? Or who my sponsor is, or who my tribe is, and who sponsors who, and how many people I sponsor. It's crazy. Sometimes we get caught up in the mob mentality as if that is real. And I had the opportunity of sitting through a meditation where in this meditation, it was very guided. And it was simply this. It was kind of like that set aside prayer. Let me set aside what I think I know about this book, about you, God. Let me set all of that aside. So in this meditation, I had to set aside my name. First name, last name, any names I was called. I had to set aside all of my social identities. So my name, my age, my experiences, my future ambitions. I had to set aside my degrees, how much money I made, where I was born, who my family is, and set that aside like I'm emptying out a house. And as I begin to empty out and set aside all these things that I thought I was, my age, my race, my gender, my attraction, my sexual orientation, as I emptied out of all of that, there was something left. And that something that was left is pure spirit, is pure life. That part of me that had never been hurt, harmed, touched, that part of me that was pure life, that part that animates this body, that life force that animates me. See, I had been confused and I thought that who I was my intellect, my master's degree, everything like that, and then my social identities. But I think that I had tapped into what Bill Wilson was talking about, that when all of that stuff is covered up, it covers up who we really are. And who we really are is the unique, unrepeatable way that life shows up in human form. that essence, that life force that animates our bodies, that power and presence is my higher power. And I don't have to go to the mountaintop to find it. That when I'm still and quiet, that it is always right there. And that's why I call it like my GPS, life. And it is there that I find the great reality. It is there that I can tell the difference between the still small voice and my alcoholic, right? And that's where the ego gets smashed. That's where God, in through and as me, in through and as each and every one of us, begins to simply shine. And everybody has it. So that means I get to respect each and every person because that living spirit is right where you are. And so compared to where I was and where I am today, that's what works for me. And it may work for you. It may not work for you on your journey and your path right now. What I get to do when I take people through the steps is I get to help people discover for themselves their higher power. Because it could be he, she, Baha'u'llah, Jehovah. It could be Jesus. It could even be the doorknob, which I don't like because everybody touches that doorknob. But it's my job as someone in AA to help someone find their higher power. And that is one of the meditations that has simply transformed my life and has really gotten me to this place today where I get to live on that road, of happy, joyous, and free, where I get to really experience it. And I get to be honest with people. I get to talk about my resentments. I get to talk about the things that I appreciate. I get to talk about things and just kind of go, hey, are we okay? Are we clear? Are we clear? Because there's no longer that necessity to people please. There's no longer that necessity to try to manipulate, to be accepted as part of the group. I already know that I have a place and a chair in Alcoholics Anonymous. And as a result of these steps, I have esteem. I know that I bring value. I bring value just like everybody else brings value. So I'm not higher than anybody or lower than anybody. And just because, I've been sober sometimes a little bit longer or shorter than other people doesn't mean that we all don't bring value. We are who we are, and we get to bring value to each and every place that we go. And I get to see that and I get to interact with that. And that's what step 11 has done for me. It has not only improved my conscious contact with this indwelling power and presence, but then it also helps me see that this power and presence is everywhere. And it's especially in my fellows, just like all 169 of you that are here on this call today. So thank you so much for your honor and your respect and listening to my story. I really, really appreciate it, and I feel complete. So I think I'll end right then and right here and right now with that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all.